AITA for refusing to help my sister after she tested my parenting in front of our entire family. I, 34F, have a 6-year-old son named Daniel. He's a sweet kid, but also very energetic and curious. Like a lot of kids his age, he sometimes asks a lot of questions or gets distracted easily. My parenting style is pretty calm and patient. I try to explain things instead of immediately punishing him. And I've always believed that kids learn better when they understand why something is wrong instead of just being scared of consequences. My younger sister, Rachel, 31F, has very different views. She doesn't have kids, but she constantly talks about how she would raise them if she did. According to her, kids today are out of control and parents are too soft. She says children should always obey immediately, and that if a kid talks back or questions something, they should be punished right away. Normally, I just ignore it. She's entitled to her opinions, and honestly, I figured she would understand more if she ever actually had a child. Last weekend, we had a big family dinner at our parents' house. My parents, my sister, her boyfriend, my aunt and uncle, and a few cousins were all there. Daniel was playing with his cousins in the living room while the adults were talking. At one point, Daniel came into the kitchen and asked if he could have another cookie. I told him he could have one more after dinner if he helped me set the table. He said okay and started carrying napkins to the table. Rachel suddenly stopped what she was doing and said, "See, this is what I mean. You're negotiating with him." I laughed a little and said it wasn't negotiating, it was just asking him to help. She rolled her eyes and said, "If that were my kid, I'd just tell him no. Kids shouldn't expect rewards for basic things." I didn't feel like arguing, so I just shrugged and kept setting plates. About 10 minutes later, Daniel accidentally knocked over a glass of water on the table while he was trying to place the forks. It wasn't a huge deal, just a spill. I grabbed a towel, and he immediately started apologizing. Before I could even say anything, Rachel loudly said, "And this is exactly what happens when kids don't get disciplined." Daniel looked really confused and embarrassed. I told him it was okay and that accidents happen, then asked him to help wipe it up. Rachel crossed her arms and said, "You're not even going to punish him?" I told her there was nothing to punish because it was an accident. She smirked and said, "You know what? I bet if he were stricter, he wouldn't be so careless." At this point, everyone in the kitchen had gone quiet. I asked her to drop it, but she said she was just being honest. Then she said something that really irritated me. She said, "Honestly, I think parents like you are why teachers are quitting. Kids run the show." I was already annoyed but tried to stay calm. I told her again that she doesn't have kids and doesn't really understand the situation. She said, "Actually, I do understand. In fact, I've been watching Daniel all evening." I asked what she meant by that. She smiled and said, "I wanted to see if your parenting style actually worked. So I did a little experiment." Apparently, earlier in the evening, she had told Daniel that if he wanted cookies before dinner, he should just ask me repeatedly because your mom will give in eventually. She also told him that if he spilled something, he shouldn't worry because your mom never gets mad. I was shocked. Daniel is 6. Of course, he believed his aunt. She basically admitted that she intentionally tried to get him to misbehave so she could prove a point in front of everyone. My dad immediately told her that was inappropriate, but Rachel doubled down and said, "I was just demonstrating what happens when you don't establish authority." Daniel started looking like he had done something wrong, which broke my heart because he had been trying to help. I told Rachel that manipulating my kid to make me look like a bad parent was completely out of line. She said I was overreacting and that if my parenting was actually solid, then a little test wouldn't matter. I told her that my son isn't a science experiment. The argument got pretty heated, and eventually Rachel said I was being defensive because deep down I knew she was right. That's when I told her that if she thinks parenting is so easy, she can wait until she actually has kids before criticizing mine. I also told her she owes Daniel an apology for confusing him. She refused and said I was turning him into a soft kid who will never respect authority. At that point, I grabbed my things and left early with Daniel. Since then, Rachel has been texting me saying I embarrassed her in front of the family and that I took her comments too personally. She says she was trying to help me improve as a parent and that storming out was childish. Now here's the part where the family is split. My parents and a couple of cousins think Rachel crossed a huge line by deliberately messing with my child just to prove a point. But my aunt and uncle say Rachel was just giving tough love and that I shouldn't have caused a scene at a family dinner. Rachel also asked me yesterday if I could help her move apartments next weekend, which I had previously agreed to. I told her no. I said I'm not comfortable helping someone who disrespected my parenting and manipulated my kid. She got angry and said I'm punishing her over a harmless experiment. Now she's telling people I'm holding a grudge and using my son as an excuse. Part of me wonders if leaving the dinner and refusing to help her move escalated things more than necessary. Maybe I should have just ignored her and finished the evening. But another part of me feels like if I let that slide, she'll think it's okay to interfere with my parenting again. So AITA for refusing to help my sister after she intentionally tried to test my parenting using my 6-year-old son? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she announced it without asking me. I, 32M, bought my house 3 years ago after working for almost a decade to save for it. It is nothing huge, just a modest house with a decent backyard, but I am proud of it because it is the first thing I have ever fully owned on my own. Growing up, my family struggled financially, so having a place that is mine means a lot to me. My sister Lily, 29F, is the opposite of me in a lot of ways. She is very social, spontaneous, and tend to make plans first and think about logistics later. Usually it works out for her because my parents or someone else in the family helps smooth things over. A few months ago, Lily got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark. I was happy for her and congratulated them. They immediately started talking about wedding ideas, venues, themes, all that stuff. At the time, Lily asked me casually if my backyard could maybe be used for a small engagement party someday. I told her maybe, depending on timing, but we did not discuss anything specific. About 3 weeks later, my mom called me, sounding excited. She said Lily had found the perfect venue, and I should be happy because it would make the wedding so intimate and meaningful. I asked where it was, and she said my house. Apparently, during a family dinner that I could not attend because of work, Lily stood up and announced that she and Mark had decided to have their wedding ceremony and reception in my backyard next summer. According to my mom, everyone thought it was adorable and meaningful because family homes are special. The thing is, nobody had actually asked me. When my mom told me this, I laughed at first because I thought it was a joke. When she clarified it was serious, I told her that Lily never asked me and I had not agreed to host a wedding. My mom said something like, well, she assumed you would say yes because you love her. Later that night, Lily called me, sounding extremely excited. She started talking about tents, catering trucks, and possibly a dance floor in the yard. I stopped her and said, hold on. You never asked me if you could have your wedding here. She seemed confused and said, well, I mentioned it before, and you said maybe. I reminded her that she asked about a small engagement party, not a full wedding with dozens of people and vendors. My backyard is not huge, and the idea of a full wedding happening at my house honestly stressed me out. There would be strangers, alcohol, potential damage, noise complaints, parking issues with neighbors, and cleanup. I told her I was not comfortable hosting the wedding. She went quiet and then asked if I was serious. I said yes, I am sorry, but I do not want my house used as a wedding venue. That conversation ended badly. She said I was being selfish and that I was ruining her dream wedding location. She also said that families should help each other and that renting a venue is expensive. After that, my parents got involved. My dad called me saying that technically it is my house, but I should think about what this means for Lily. My mom said the family already knows the wedding is happening here and changing it would embarrass her. Apparently, Lily has already told extended relatives and even posted something online about a backyard wedding at her brother's house. I told them that announcing it publicly before confirming with me was exactly the problem. Then things escalated. Lily called again a few days later and asked if I would reconsider if they limited the guest list. I asked how many people she was planning to invite originally. She said around 120, but they could probably cut it to 80. My backyard cannot comfortably hold 80 people, tables, music equipment, and a dance floor. Also, the bathrooms in my house are not designed for that many guests. I explained that even 50 would feel like too much. She started crying and said she had already pictured walking down the aisle in the yard with the trees and lights. She also said that because I live about 30 minutes outside the city, it would be quieter and more romantic than other venues they looked at. Then she said something that really bothered me. She said, "You do not even use the yard that much." I told her that does not matter. It is still my property, and I do not want to host a massive event there. Now half my family thinks I'm being unreasonable. My aunt said I should see it as an honor. My cousin told me it would only be one day and that I'm lucky Lily even wants to include me like this. But from my perspective, it feels like everyone made plans with my house as the centerpiece without involving me at all. Also, I would probably be responsible if anything went wrong, from property damage to angry neighbors. I suggested they look into community gardens, small outdoor venues, or even parks that allow weddings. Lily said those places do not have the same emotional meaning. The latest development is that Lily told my mom she might postpone the wedding because she needs time to figure things out. My mom implied that if I would just say yes, the whole problem would disappear. Now I feel guilty because I do want Lily to have a great wedding. At the same time, I feel like I am being pressured into giving up control of my home for an event I never agreed to host. So now the family group chat is awkward, my parents are disappointed, and Lily barely speaks to me. AITA for refusing to let my sister have her wedding in my backyard after she already announced it to everyone. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she turned my worst moment into a funny story for guests. I, 27F, have an older sister, Claire, 31F. Growing up, Claire was always the confident, charismatic one, while I was more quiet and awkward. She was the kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly have people laughing. Unfortunately, sometimes the thing people laughed at was me. Most of the teasing was brushed off as sibling stuff. If I tripped, she'd dramatically reenact it for our parents. If I said something dumb, she'd repeat it at family dinners. My parents always told me to relax and said Claire was just joking. Over time, I just learned to stay quiet about it. The worst incident happened 3 years ago at Claire's birthday party. I had just started a new job, and I was already anxious because I didn't know many people there. Claire invited a big group of her friends and coworkers, most of whom were strangers to me. At one point in the night, someone brought up embarrassing work stories. Claire suddenly said, "Oh, you want embarrassing? Let me tell you about my sister's interview disaster." I froze immediately because I knew exactly what she was about to say. A year before that, I had an interview for a company I really wanted to work for. I was incredibly nervous, and during the interview, I accidentally knocked over a glass of water, which spilled all over the interviewer's desk and my lap. I panicked and tried to clean it with tissues, but ended up making it worse. I was so flustered that I started rambling and eventually just excused myself to the bathroom, where I cried for 10 minutes. I did not get the job. I had only told Claire about it because I was upset at the time, and she seemed sympathetic. Apparently, she remembered every detail for comedic purposes. So at her party, she dramatically told the whole story. She even acted out me knocking over the water and panicking. People were laughing really hard. One guy was literally wiping tears from his eyes. I felt humiliated. I tried to laugh it off, but after a few minutes, I went to the bathroom and stayed there until my boyfriend convinced me to leave. The next day, I told Claire that what she did was really hurtful. She rolled her eyes and said I was being overly sensitive. She said it was objectively funny, and everyone tells embarrassing stories about family. After that, I started distancing myself from her. We still saw each other holidays, but I stopped sharing personal things. Now fast forward to recently. Claire is getting married in 2 months. I was originally asked to be one of her bridesmaids, but I declined and said I'd rather just attend as a regular guest. She seemed annoyed, but accepted it. Last week my mom called me sounding stressed. Apparently, Claire is planning a section during the reception where friends and family share funny stories about her. My mom casually mentioned that Claire already has a great one ready about me and the interview incident because everyone loved that story. I felt my stomach drop. I called Claire and asked if that was true. She laughed and said yes, but it would be even better this time because she was thinking of bringing out a glass of water as a prop. I told her absolutely not. I said that story was humiliating and I didn't want it shared again, especially in front of a room full of people I don't know. She said I was making a huge deal out of nothing and that weddings are supposed to be fun. She also said the story makes her look like a supportive sister because she comforted me afterward, which is not even true. We argued for almost 20 minutes. Eventually, I said that if she told that story at the wedding, I wouldn't attend. She said I was being dramatic and that I wouldn't actually skip my own sister's wedding over a joke. But honestly, the thought of sitting there while hundreds of people laugh at one of the most embarrassing moments of my life makes me feel sick. I told her my boundary was simple. Don't tell the story. She said she refuses to censor herself for something that happened years ago. Now my parents are involved and they're begging me to reconsider. They say Claire is under a lot of stress planning the wedding and that I should just ignore the story if it happens. My mom even suggested that maybe if I laughed along with it, people would think I was a good sport. My boyfriend is completely on my side and says Claire clearly doesn't respect me. Claire texted me yesterday saying she can't believe I'm trying to punish her over a harmless story and that if I skip the wedding, it will permanently damage our relationship. At this point, I feel like the only way to protect myself from being humiliated again is to simply not go. But now half my family is acting like I'm about to ruin the biggest day of her life. So AITA for saying I won't attend my sister's wedding if she tells that story about me? AITA for refusing to give my brother the family heirloom after he ignored our grandmother for years? I, 29F, recently inherited something from my grandmother that has caused a huge argument in my family, and now everyone is calling me selfish. My grandmother raised me for a big part of my childhood. My parents both worked long hours, so I spent most afternoons and weekends at her house. She taught me how to cook, helped me with homework, and honestly was the person I talked to about everything growing up. My older brother Daniel, 33M, was never that close with her. When we were kids, he preferred hanging out with friends or playing sports, which was fine, but as he got older, he basically stopped visiting her entirely. For the last 6 years of her life, I was the one who visited every week, sometimes more. I would take her grocery shopping, fix things around the house, and later when her health got worse, I helped coordinate doctor appointments and medications. Daniel lived only about 20 minutes away, but he rarely showed up. He'd send a text on holidays or sometimes call for 5 minutes, but that was about it. About 2 years ago, my grandmother started talking about what would happen to her belongings when she passed. She didn't have a lot of money, but she had a few meaningful items that had been in the family for decades. The most important one was a vintage gold pocket watch that originally belonged to her father. It had been passed down through the family, and everyone referred to it as the family watch. One afternoon while we were having tea, she told me she wanted me to have it. I was surprised because traditionally it had always gone to the oldest grandchild, which would technically be Daniel. I asked if she was sure. She told me very clearly that she wanted it to go to the person who actually spent time with her and cared about family history. She even joked that Daniel probably wouldn't notice if the watch disappeared entirely. She wrote it in her will shortly after that. My grandmother passed away 3 months ago. It was obviously really hard on me. I was there with her in the hospital the day she died. Daniel came later that evening, and while he was sad, it was clear he hadn't been as involved in everything leading up to it. A few weeks after the funeral, we had the reading of the will. Most of her things were split between family members. When the lawyer got to the watch and read that it was left specifically to me, Daniel immediately looked shocked. At first he didn't say anything, but later that day he pulled me aside and asked if there had been some kind of mistake. I told him no and explained that Grandma had talked to me about it beforehand. He got really upset and said the watch had always gone to the oldest grandchild and that I should give it to him because it was tradition. I reminded him that it was literally in her will and that she had made that decision herself. He said she probably only chose me because I was around more and had influenced her. That really hurt because the only reason I was around more was because he chose not to be. Over the next few weeks, he kept bringing it up. First, it was just him asking nicely. Then it became him saying the watch would mean more to him as the head of the next generation. Eventually, my parents got involved and started telling me that it might be better for family harmony if I just gave it to him. That's where things got worse. I told them I didn't feel comfortable ignoring Grandma's wishes. She made a clear choice, and I felt like giving it away would be disrespectful to her. My parents said I was being stubborn and that Daniel felt embarrassed because extended relatives assumed the watch would go to him. Now my aunt and a couple cousins have also weighed in. Some agree with me, but others say traditions matter and that keeping it makes me look petty. The thing is, the watch isn't just a random object to me. I associate with my grandmother. I remember her showing it to me when I was little and explaining how it worked. I remember helping her clean it once while she told stories about her father. It feels like the one thing she intentionally chose for me. Daniel recently sent me a long message saying that every time he thinks about the watch, he feels like I took something that should have been his. He said if I really cared about family, I would give it to him. I haven't responded yet because honestly, I'm exhausted by the whole situation. Part of me wonders if keeping it will permanently damage my relationship with him. But another part of me feels like giving it up would erase the decision my grandmother made very deliberately. So now I'm stuck wondering if I'm being unreasonable by holding on to it. AITA? AITA for refusing to give my sister the money I saved for my wedding after she announced she was pregnant. I, 29F, have been engaged to my fiancé Mark, 31M, for about a year. We're planning our wedding for next summer and have been saving for it for almost 3 years. We both work pretty normal jobs, so this isn't some huge luxury wedding, but it's something we've been excited about for a long time. We've been putting aside money every month and finally reached the budget we wanted. My sister Jenna, 27F, has always been a bit more impulsive with life decisions. I love her, but she's the type who jumps into things without planning. She's had a lot of different jobs, moved apartments several times in the last few years, and tends to rely on our parents when things get messy. About 2 months ago, Jenna announced at a family dinner that she was pregnant. Everyone was surprised because she had only been dating her boyfriend for about 6 months. My parents were supportive, but clearly worried. Jenna said she and her boyfriend were figuring things out, but didn't have a clear plan yet. At first, everything seemed fine. I congratulated her, offered to help with baby shopping later, and thought that would be the end of it. Then about 3 weeks ago, she asked if we could talk privately. We met for coffee, and she explained that her boyfriend had just lost his job and things were really stressful. She said they were struggling with rent and medical bills and asked if I could lend her some money. I asked how much she needed. She said about $12,000. I honestly thought she was joking at first because that's an enormous amount of money for me. When I asked why it had to be that much, she said they needed to move to a bigger place before the baby came and pay off some credit cards. I told her I didn't have that kind of money just sitting around. She looked confused and said, "But you have the wedding fund." I told her yes, but that money was specifically saved for the wedding and that Mark and I had worked really hard to build it. She immediately said that a wedding was just one day, but a baby was a real emergency. I said I understood she was stressed, but that money wasn't something I could just give away. Even if I wanted to, it would mean canceling or drastically changing the wedding we've been planning for years. She got really upset and said families should help each other when things get hard. The conversation ended awkwardly, and later that night my mom called me. Apparently Jenna had told my parents everything and said I refused to help her and the baby. My mom didn't directly tell me to give her the money, but she did say things like a baby changes priorities and weddings can be simple. A few days later, Jenna texted me a long message saying she felt hurt that I valued a party more than my future niece or nephew. She also said that since I'm the more stable one, it made sense for me to help. What made things worse is that some extended family somehow heard about it and started messaging me, saying things like, "Money comes and goes, but family is forever." Mark is fully on my side and thinks it's ridiculous that anyone expects us to give away our entire wedding fund. He pointed out that Jenna and her boyfriend chose to move in together and take on expenses without much planning, and it shouldn't automatically become our responsibility. I do feel bad for her because pregnancy is stressful and I know she's scared. But at the same time, I feel like giving her that money would basically erase years of saving and planning for something important to me and my fiancé. Also, realistically, there's no guarantee she would ever be able to pay it back. Now, Jenna barely talks to me. My mom keeps hinting that I should reconsider, and family gatherings have become really awkward. Part of me wonders if I'm being selfish for holding on to money for a wedding when my sister is about to have a baby and clearly struggling. But another part of me feels like it's unfair that my life plans are suddenly expected to disappear because she made different choices. So AITA for refusing to give my sister the money we saved for our wedding, even though she says she needs it for the baby? AITA for refusing to give my sister the money I saved for years after she publicly promised it to her kids? I, 29F, have always been the responsible one in my family. My older sister Megan, 35F, is the opposite. She's charismatic, fun, and people love her, but she has a long history of making big promises she can't afford and expecting someone else to clean up the mess later. For context, I've been saving money for almost 7 years to buy my first home. I live in a small rented apartment and work a decent job, but housing prices are brutal where I live. I skipped vacations, drove an old car, and took extra freelance work to slowly build a down payment fund. My family knows about this because it's been my main goal for a long time. Megan has 3 kids, 13, 11, and 8. I love them a lot, and I'm the cool aunt. I take them out sometimes and buy them gifts for birthdays, but I've never been financially responsible for them. About 3 weeks ago, Megan posted on social media about wanting to send her oldest to a really expensive summer academic program overseas. It's apparently a big deal and looks great for college applications. The problem is that the program costs around $8,000, including travel. At first, I thought she was just talking about it as a dream. Then a few days later, she made another post saying something like, "So proud to be able to give my daughter this opportunity. She deserves the world." People were congratulating her and asking how she managed it. And then she replied in the comments that family helps when it matters. I didn't think much of it until my mom called me and asked how I felt about helping Megan with the program. That's when I found out that Megan had apparently told multiple relatives that I agreed to pay for it. I absolutely did not. Apparently, she told everyone that since I had a big house fund and no kids, I offered to sponsor the trip because I believe in investing in the kids' futures. I called Megan immediately and asked what the hell she was talking about. She sounded weirdly casual and said something like, "Oh yeah, I told them you'd probably help. You make good money and it's for your niece." I told her that I never agreed to that and that $8,000 is a huge amount of money for me. She got irritated and said I was being dramatic because I have tens of thousands sitting in savings. I explained that the savings are specifically for my house and that I worked really hard for it. Her response was basically, "You'll still have plenty left." What really made me angry was when she admitted she had already told my niece that I was paying for the trip. So now this kid is excited and thanking me for something I never offered. I told Megan she needs to correct that immediately because I'm not paying. She said if I back out now, I'll crush a child's dream and embarrass her in front of the whole family. Over the next week, things got worse. My mom said maybe I should help just this once. My dad said it would be a wonderful opportunity for my niece. Even my aunt called me to say family should support each other. When I pointed out that Megan never asked me first, everyone kind of brushed that aside and focused on the kids. Meanwhile, Megan started making passive-aggressive posts online about people who have money but no generosity. Yesterday, we had a family dinner, and it turned into a full argument. Megan basically said that I'm choosing a future house over my niece's education and that I'm being selfish because I live alone and have no real responsibilities. I finally snapped and said that if she thinks the program is so important, she should have saved for it herself instead of volunteering someone else's money. She accused me of humiliating her and making her look like a bad parent. I told her she did that herself when she promised something she couldn't afford. Now the family is split. My parents think I should at least pay part of it to keep the peace. Megan is barely speaking to me. My niece is confused because she heard different stories from different adults. Part of me feels awful because I never want to disappoint my niece, but another part of me feels like I'm being manipulated into sacrificing years of hard work just because my sister opened her mouth without asking. So now I'm sitting here wondering if I'm being too rigid about the money and if maybe I should just give in to avoid damaging family relationships. AITA for refusing to pay for the program, even though my sister already promised everyone that I would. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she publicly humiliated my wife. I, 34M, have always been the reliable one in my family. I have a stable job in IT. My wife, Jenna, 33F, is a nurse, and we're doing reasonably well financially. My younger sister, Lily, 29F, has always been more impulsive. She's fun, charismatic, and people love being around her, but she's also terrible with money and planning. Growing up, my parents always asked me to help her out. If Lily missed rent, I'd cover it. If her car broke down, I'd lend her money. I never really complained because she's my sister and I figure family helps family. 2 years ago, Lily got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark. He seems like a nice guy, but they're both not exactly financially responsible. When they started planning the wedding, they quickly realized they couldn't afford most of what they wanted. My parents sat me down and basically asked if I could help make Lily's dream wedding happen. They didn't directly demand it, but it was pretty clear they expected me to step in. After talking it over with Jenna, we agreed to contribute a large amount toward the venue and catering. It wasn't pocket change. It was around 18,000 euros, which was a big deal for us, but we could manage it. At first, Lily was extremely grateful. She hugged Jenna and me and said we were the reason she could have the wedding she always dreamed of. Fast forward to last month, when the wedding finally happened. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Everything seemed to be going great. Jenna helped Lily with last-minute things that morning and even fixed part of her dress when the zipper got stuck. My wife really went out of her way to help. Then came the speeches. Lily started her speech by thanking our parents and Mark's parents. Totally normal. Then she thanked her bridesmaids. Also normal. When she got to Jenna and me, she said something that completely blindsided us. She said something like, and of course thanks to my brother for always acting like my dad and trying to control everything in my life. Thankfully, I finally found someone who lets me be myself. People laughed awkwardly. Then she added, and thanks to Jenna for making sure he signs the checks. Some people laughed louder. It felt like she was implying that my wife was some kind of gold digger controlling me. Jenna looked shocked. Lily kept going and said, honestly, if it were up to my brother, we'd probably be having the wedding in a spreadsheet. More laughter. I was sitting there feeling humiliated. Jenna was clearly hurt. She had spent weeks helping Lily plan things, and this is how she was being thanked. After the speech, Jenna quietly told me she wanted to leave. I agreed. Before we left, Lily came over laughing and asked why we looked so serious. I told her the jokes about Jenna were rude and unnecessary. She rolled her eyes and said it was just a speech and that we needed to lighten up. Here's where the bigger issue comes in. The final payment for the venue was due the week after the wedding. I'd already paid most of it, but there was still about 6,000 euro left that I had agreed to cover. After what happened, I told Lily I wasn't comfortable paying the rest after she publicly mocked my wife. She immediately got angry and said I was trying to ruin her wedding after it already happened. Apparently, the venue had allowed them to delay the last payment because they knew I was supposed to pay it. My parents got involved and said I was being petty and that Lily's speech was obviously a joke. They said backing out now would embarrass the family and hurt Lily financially. Jenna told me she supports whatever decision I make, but admitted the speech really hurt her feelings. She said she felt like Lily was taking a shot at her in front of 120 people. Lily has since posted passive-aggressive things online about family members who only help when they can control you. At this point, I'm seriously considering sticking to my decision and not paying the remaining 6,000 euros. But my parents keep saying that family doesn't abandon each other over a joke. So now I'm stuck wondering if I'm overreacting or if this is one of those moments where I should actually stand my ground. AITA for refusing to pay the rest of my sister's wedding after the speech she gave about my wife. AITA for refusing to cancel my wedding after my sister announced hers for the same day. I, 29F, have been engaged to my fiancé Daniel, 31M, for a little over a year. We spent months planning our wedding, mostly because we were paying for it ourselves and needed time to save up. After checking venues, coordinating with family schedules, and dealing with Daniel's job, where he travels a lot, we finally locked in a date this coming September. We booked a venue, paid deposits, and sent out save the dates around 4 months ago. For context, my younger sister Lily, 26F, has always been the spontaneous one in the family. She jumps into things quickly, which sometimes works out and sometimes doesn't. She started dating her boyfriend Mark around Christmas last year. They got engaged 3 months later. Everyone was surprised, but my parents were thrilled and started talking about another wedding in the family. About a month ago, Lily called a family dinner and announced that she and Mark had set a wedding date. When she said the exact date, my stomach dropped. It was the exact same day as mine. At first, I thought she was joking. When I reminded her that Daniel and I were already getting married that day, she just shrugged and said that date was special to her because it was the anniversary of when she and Mark first met. I told her that our venue and most vendors were already booked and deposits were non-refundable. She said she understood, but that maybe we could move ours since we had been engaged longer and had more time to plan another one. I didn't even know how to respond to that. The conversation got tense quickly. My mom tried to smooth things over by suggesting we both keep the date and just have our weddings at different times of day so people could attend both. That sounded insane to me because our venue is 2 hours away from where Lily wants to get married. I said I wasn't moving my wedding. We had already planned everything, and it wasn't fair to ask us to change months of planning and lose thousands of euros in deposits. Lily got upset and said I was being selfish and that weddings are about family supporting each other. What really frustrated me is that she has barely started planning anything. She doesn't have a venue yet and keeps talking about maybe doing a beach ceremony or renting a barn. Meanwhile, we already have our location, catering, photographer, and half the guest list confirmed. After that dinner, things got weird. My parents started gently asking if we had considered moving our date just a week or two. My dad said it might reduce family drama and make things easier for everyone. I told them again that we literally can't move it without losing money and possibly the venue entirely because it's fully booked for months. Then Lily started messaging some relatives saying that I refused to compromise and that I was trying to claim a whole day like a monopoly. A few cousins reached out asking if there was really no way we could adjust things. Daniel is fully on my side, but he's also frustrated because his family already booked flights and hotels. Changing the date would mess up a lot of people's travel plans. Last week, Lily called me, crying, saying I'm ruining her dream wedding because half the family will choose my wedding over hers since mine was announced first. She said as the older sister, I should want to support her and help make her day special. I told her she could literally pick any other date and avoid the conflict entirely. She responded that I'm being stubborn and that if I cared about family harmony, I would compromise. My mom keeps telling me Lily is emotional and that maybe I should be the bigger person. Now some relatives are saying they feel stuck in the middle and don't know which wedding to attend if both happen the same day. I feel like this entire situation could be solved if Lily simply picked another date, but everyone keeps acting like I'm the one causing the conflict by refusing to move mine. So AITA for refusing to change my wedding date, even though my sister chose the exact same day for hers. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to give my sister my wedding venue after she announced her engagement. I, 29F, am getting married in late September this year. My fiancé Mark, 31M, and I have been planning the wedding for almost a year. We're not super flashy people, but we wanted something meaningful. After a lot of searching, we found this beautiful historic greenhouse venue about an hour outside the city. It's surrounded by gardens and big old trees, and it has these glass ceilings that make the whole place glow at sunset. I absolutely fell in love with it the first time we visited. The problem is that the place is very popular and books out more than a year in advance. We had to secure our date with a pretty large non-refundable deposit. It took a lot of our savings, but we decided it was worth it because we planned to only get married once. Everything was fine until about 2 months ago when my younger sister Lily, 26F, got engaged to her boyfriend Jake. I was genuinely happy for her. I helped her pick out her dress when they started casually browsing, and I even offered to share some of my vendor contacts. Then during a family dinner, my sister suddenly asked where our venue was again. I told her the name and showed her some photos. She got really quiet and then said, "That's the one I wanted." I thought she meant she liked it too, so I said something like, "Yeah, it's gorgeous, but you'll probably have to look at 2027 dates because they're super booked." That's when she said something that confused everyone at the table. She said, "Well, actually, since yours is already booked, maybe you could let me take it?" I honestly thought she was joking. I laughed and asked what she meant. She explained that she and Jake want to get married next summer, and apparently that venue is her dream wedding location. She said since we already had the reservation, we could transfer the booking to her, and then Mark and I could just find somewhere else. I told her that wasn't really possible because we had spent months planning around that location and had already paid a big deposit. She said she understood, but that she'd pay us back eventually. My dad asked if the deposit was refundable, and I explained it wasn't. That's when Lily started getting emotional and said I was being selfish. Her argument was that she had been talking about wanting a garden wedding for years, and that since I'm the older sister, I should be more flexible and let her have the venue since she found the idea first. For the record, I have never heard her mention this venue before in my life. I tried to stay calm and said that even if I wanted to give it to her, it would mean losing thousands of dollars and starting our wedding planning from scratch with only 6 months left. I said I'd gladly help her find a similar place. She didn't like that answer. A few days later, my mom called me and suggested I think about it again. She said Lily has always imagined a big outdoor wedding and that she's been stressed trying to find a venue with availability. My mom also said that since Mark and I are already legally stable and have been together longer, waiting another year wouldn't hurt us. That comment really bothered me because Mark and I deliberately chose our date. It's the anniversary of when we first met. Meanwhile, Lily has been telling extended family that I stole her dream venue and won't share. A couple of cousins have messaged me saying I should just let her use it because family harmony is more important than a building. The thing is, even if I wanted to transfer it, the venue said the contract change fee alone would be huge, and there's no guarantee the date could even move to hers. On top of that, Mark is understandably upset. He feels like my family is treating our wedding like it's less important. Last weekend, things blew up again at another family gathering. Lily asked in front of everyone if I had come to my senses yet. I said no, we're keeping the venue. She burst into tears and left the house. My mom followed her and later texted me that I should apologize for embarrassing her. Now half my relatives think I'm being stubborn over just a venue, and the other half say my sister is acting entitled. I do feel bad that she's stressed about planning her wedding, but I also feel like giving up something we spent a year planning and thousands of dollars on is unreasonable. Mark says we shouldn't budge because if we give in now, it will set a bad precedent with my family. Still, part of me wonders if I'm being too rigid since technically we could postpone our wedding if we really had to. It would just mean losing a lot of money and starting over. So, AITA for refusing to give my sister my wedding venue? AITA for refusing to give my sister my late husband's dog, even though she claims her kids need it more? My husband Mark passed away last year after a long battle with cancer. We had been married for 9 years. Toward the end, when he was still able to get around a bit, he insisted on adopting a dog. I thought it was a bad idea at first because we both knew his health was declining, but he said he wanted something positive in the house, something that made him feel normal again. So we went to the shelter and adopted a medium-sized mixed breed named Daisy. Daisy immediately attached herself to Mark. She followed him everywhere, sat next to him during chemo recovery days, and slept by his feet every night. When Mark got weaker, Daisy seemed to understand and became extremely gentle around him. The nurses who came to the house even commented on how calm she was. Mark used to joke that Daisy was his emotional support animal, even though it wasn't official. Before he died, he told me very clearly that he wanted me to keep Daisy. He said she helped him through the worst time of his life, and he wanted her to keep me company after he was gone. It wasn't written in a will or anything, but it was a conversation we had multiple times. At the time, I promised him I would. Since Mark passed away, Daisy has honestly helped me more than anything else. The house felt unbearably quiet at first, but having her there made it easier to get out of bed every morning. She waits by the door when I come home from work and sleeps curled up next to the couch while I watch TV. It sounds silly, but she feels like the last living connection I have to Mark. Here's where the conflict started. My younger sister Emily has 2 kids, ages 6 and 9. A couple of months ago, they came over to visit. Daisy is a very friendly dog, so the kids absolutely loved her. They played fetch with her in the backyard for hours, and Daisy was thrilled with the attention. After that visit, Emily started casually bringing up how great Daisy would be for her family. At first, it sounded like joking comments like the kids would steal her if they could. I laughed it off because obviously Daisy lives with me. But over the past few weeks, Emily has become more serious about it. She called me one night and said her kids have been asking for a dog nonstop and Daisy would be perfect because they already love her. She also said that since I work full-time and live alone, Daisy would probably have a better life with a busy household and kids to play with. I told her no immediately. I said Daisy is staying with me because she was Mark's dog and I promised him I'd keep her. Emily got quiet and then said I was being selfish. She said that while Daisy reminds me of Mark, she could bring joy to 2 children who are currently begging for a pet. She also said I'm holding on to grief instead of letting life move forward. That comment really upset me. Since then, she's brought it up multiple times. She even had the kids FaceTime me and ask if Daisy could come live with them. That felt incredibly manipulative to me. When I told them Daisy lives here, my niece started crying and Emily sighed loudly like it proved her point. Last weekend, things escalated. We were at our parents' house for dinner, and Emily started the conversation again in front of everyone. She said I should consider what's best for Daisy and not just what makes me feel better emotionally. My dad actually said a house with kids might be more stimulating for a dog. My mom stayed neutral, but suggested maybe I could share Daisy sometimes, like letting her stay with Emily for a week here and there. I refused. I said Daisy isn't a library book that gets checked out. She's my dog. Mark and I adopted her together, and I promised him I'd take care of her. Emily responded by saying Mark probably just wanted Daisy to be happy, and if that meant living with kids, then I should think about that. She also said it's unfair that one person gets a dog while 2 kids who adore her don't. At that point, I told Emily that if her kids want a dog, she can adopt one herself instead of trying to take mine. There are plenty of dogs at shelters that need homes. She said it's not the same because the kids specifically want Daisy. Then she said something that really bothered me. She said I'm clinging to a dog as a replacement for my husband. Now, my parents think the situation is sad all around. Emily keeps saying I'm being stubborn and not thinking about the kids. I feel like she's ignoring the fact that Daisy is part of my life and tied to some of the last memories I have with Mark. I know kids and dogs can be great together, and I do sometimes worry Daisy might be bored while I'm at work during the day. But she's happy when I'm home, and I walk her every morning and evening. I also have a dog walker who comes by midday. Still, Emily's comments keep getting in my head. She keeps saying Daisy would be more loved in a bigger family, which honestly feels like a jab at me. So now I'm questioning myself. I know Daisy was Mark's dog too, and part of me wonders if I'm holding on to her more for emotional reasons than practical ones. But at the same time, giving her away feels like breaking the promise I made to him. AITA for refusing to give my sister my late husband's dog, even though she thinks her kids deserve it more. AITA for refusing to give my sister my wedding venue after she got engaged 2 weeks before my wedding. I, 29F, have been planning my wedding for almost a year. My fiancé, Daniel, 31M, and I got engaged last spring and decided pretty quickly that we wanted a small but really nice wedding. Nothing huge, about 70 people, but we wanted a beautiful venue because both of us love nature and photography. After months of searching, we booked this gorgeous botanical garden about an hour outside the city. It's honestly the kind of place people book years in advance. We got extremely lucky because a couple had canceled and we grabbed their date. It required a non-refundable deposit and a contract that clearly states that date changes are almost impossible unless you rebook entirely. My family loved the venue when we showed them photos. My mom kept saying it looked like something out of a movie, and my sister Lily, 26F, joked that she'd just steal it from me one day. Fast forward to about a month ago. Lily's boyfriend proposed. Everyone was thrilled because they've been together a long time. At first, everything was normal, and we were all celebrating her engagement. Then things started getting weird. About 2 weeks ago, Lily came over to my apartment and started asking me a lot of questions about the wedding planning process. She asked how hard it was to book the botanical garden, what the price was, how far in advance they schedule, etc. I answered because I didn't think anything of it. Then she said something like, I've always dreamed of getting married somewhere like that. I laughed and said, yeah, that's why I booked it. Then she said, completely serious, well, your wedding is so soon. What if you let me use the venue instead? I thought she was joking. I literally laughed and waited for her to laugh too. She didn't. She said she and her fiancé really want a spring wedding and my date is perfect. She said since I've already done all the work finding the venue, it would make things easier for them. I told her that didn't make sense because my wedding is in 2 weeks. Invitations are sent. Guests have flights and hotels booked. The caterer, photographer, florist, everything is already scheduled. She said I could just push it back a few months. I reminded her that the deposit is non-refundable and that the venue probably wouldn't even have another date available this year. She said if I loved her, I would at least ask. I said absolutely not. She got really quiet and then said she thought I'd be more supportive since she's my sister. Then she left. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A few days later, my mom called me and asked if I had considered Lily's idea. Apparently, Lily told her that I was refusing to help her have the wedding she's always wanted. My mom said that since my fiancé and I are low-drama people, we could easily move our wedding and let Lily have the date since she just got engaged and is excited. I was honestly stunned. I told her it's not just a dinner reservation. It's an entire event planned for nearly a year. My mom said weddings can be rescheduled all the time. Then Lily started texting me things like, I would do this for you, and you're being selfish over one day. What really pushed me over the edge happened yesterday. My aunt called me asking if my wedding was being postponed because Lily apparently told several relatives that she might be taking over the venue. I immediately called Lily and asked why she was telling people that. She said she assumed I would eventually realize it was the right thing to do. I told her she needs to stop telling people that because it's not happening. She said I'm being stubborn and that I already had my moment when I got engaged last year while she just got engaged and deserves a chance to enjoy hers. I finally snapped and told her that if she likes the venue so much, she can try to book it herself like I did instead of trying to take mine. She said the date is the whole point and that she wants a spring garden wedding. I said so do I, which is why mine is literally scheduled in 2 weeks. Now my mom is saying I'm creating unnecessary tension right before the wedding and that it wouldn't hurt me to be flexible. She even suggested that Daniel and I could just do a courthouse ceremony on our planned date and move the big wedding later. Daniel thinks the entire situation is ridiculous and told me not to even entertain it. Most of my friends agree, but a couple relatives are saying I should be the bigger person because Lily is emotional right now. I'm honestly exhausted because instead of being excited about getting married, I'm dealing with family drama over something that feels completely unreasonable. But now that multiple family members are acting like I'm being difficult, I'm starting to wonder if I'm missing something. AITA for refusing to give my sister my wedding venue and date 2 weeks before my wedding. AITA for refusing to give my sister the house our grandparents left me, even though she says she needs it more. I, 29F, grew up very close to my grandparents. They lived about 20 minutes away, and for most of my childhood, I spent weekends there helping my grandpa in the garden and baking with my grandma. My younger sister Lily, 26F, wasn't nearly as interested in visiting them. She preferred hanging out with friends or staying home. Nobody forced her, and my grandparents never held it against her, but it meant I ended up spending a lot more time with them. When I was 17, my grandma's health started declining. My parents both worked full-time, and Lily was busy with school activities, so I started going over after school a few days a week to help out. I'd cook dinner, run small errands, and mostly just keep my grandma company. My grandpa used to joke that I was their part-time roommate. I didn't really think much about it at the time because I genuinely liked being there. Over the next several years, their health slowly got worse. By the time I was in college, I was visiting multiple times a week. My parents helped financially when needed, but a lot of the day-to-day stuff ended up falling to me because I lived the closest and had the most flexible schedule. Again, I never complained because they had always been good to me. My grandpa passed away first when I was 23. That was really hard on my grandma. I started staying over some nights because she hated being alone in the house. Lily visited occasionally, but she still mostly kept her distance. She once told me she found it depressing and didn't like seeing grandma sick. 2 years ago, my grandma passed away as well. Losing both of them felt like losing my safe place. About a month after the funeral, the will was read, and that's when things got complicated. My grandparents left me their house. To be clear, this wasn't some giant mansion. It's a small but nice 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood that they bought in the 70s. But housing prices in our area have exploded over the years, so the house is now worth a lot more than when they bought it. They left Lily and my 2 cousins some money from their savings, but the house specifically went to me. My grandma had apparently told the lawyer it was because I had spent so much time helping them, and she wanted me to have a stable place to live. At the time, Lily said she understood. She even told me Grandma probably felt grateful for all the help I gave. I told her if she ever needed to stay there temporarily, she'd always be welcome. Fast forward to now. Lily recently got married, and she and her husband are expecting their first child. They currently live in a small apartment, and apparently the rent just went up again. About 2 months ago, she asked if I would consider giving them the house since they need the space more. I thought she meant letting them stay there for a while, which I was open to discussing. But she clarified that she meant transferring ownership to them entirely because they're starting a family and I'm single. I told her I wasn't comfortable with that. I live in the house now, and it's literally the only property I own. It also has huge sentimental value to me because every room reminds me of my grandparents. She got upset and said I was being selfish because I don't actually need a 3-bedroom house by myself. She said Grandma probably would have wanted the house to go to the family member who needed it most at this stage of life. I reminded her that Grandma specifically chose to leave it to me. That didn't go over well. Since then, Lily has been bringing it up constantly. She says it's unfair that I'm sitting on a house that could help her family. She also pointed out that if I sold it, I could easily buy a smaller place and still have money left over. Our parents have tried to stay neutral, but my mom did say she understands Lily's point because raising a child in a cramped apartment is hard. What's making me feel guilty is that Lily has started telling extended family that I'm refusing to help her when I have the ability to. A few relatives have reached out saying things like family should support each other. The thing is, I did offer a compromise. I told Lily she and her husband could stay in the house for a year while they save for something bigger, as long as I still legally owned it. She rejected that immediately because she said she doesn't want to feel like a guest in her own family's house. Now things are extremely tense. She barely speaks to me except to argue about it. And apparently she's telling people that I care more about property than my future niece or nephew. I keep thinking about how my grandparents trusted me with this house and how many memories are tied to it. At the same time, I feel terrible knowing my sister is struggling with space while expecting a baby. But giving away the house feels like giving away the last big piece of my grandparents. So AITA for refusing to give my sister the house, even though she says she needs it more. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with me after a fight over boundaries. I, 28F, have always had a pretty structured life. I live alone in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city where I work as a graphic designer. I like my routines, my space, and I genuinely enjoy having my apartment as a sanctuary. My younger sister, Lily, 25F, on the other hand, is more spontaneous and impulsive. She's always had a free-spirited streak that has sometimes led to her making questionable decisions. Recently, one of those decisions created a huge tension between us, and I can't tell if I'm overreacting or if I was completely justified. About 3 months ago, Lily started dating someone new, Jake, 27M. From the beginning, I got a very charming but intense vibe from him. He's charismatic, funny, and generally well-liked, but I quickly noticed he had a habit of overstepping boundaries. Lily was smitten, and I tried to remain neutral, hoping things would settle once the initial honeymoon phase passed. Things came to a head last month. I had been planning a quiet weekend for myself. I work long hours during the week, and this particular weekend I had scheduled to catch up on rest, some freelance work, and a bit of painting, which is my hobby. Lily called me on Friday evening, sounding frantic. She had gotten into an argument with Jake because he wanted to move in with her immediately after dating for less than 2 months. She was panicking because she didn't want to confront him directly about it, and she asked if he could stay with me temporarily just until things settled down. She insisted it would only be a few days and that she didn't want to cause a scene or hurt Jake's feelings. I immediately told her no. I explained that I have my own space, my own life, and I couldn't just accommodate someone she had only been dating for a few weeks. She tried to argue that it would be temporary, that he had nowhere else to go, and that I was being cold and unsupportive. I reiterated my position, but she kept pressing. The conversation ended with her upset and me frustrated. 2 nights later, Jake showed up at my apartment. Lily had apparently told him that I had agreed to let him crash there. I was shocked. I confronted him at the door and explained that this was not the case. I politely but firmly told him he couldn't stay. He started trying to negotiate, saying he didn't want to be homeless for a few days, that Lily said would be fine, that I was being unreasonable. I stayed calm but unwavering. After about 20 minutes of this back and forth, he left angrily, muttering about how unkind I was being. The next day, Lily came over, and we had a huge argument. She accused me of sabotaging her relationship, of being selfish, and of not caring about family. I tried to explain that boundaries are important and that I could support her emotionally without turning my apartment into a temporary housing situation for someone I barely knew. She became more emotional, claiming I was overreacting and that if I cared about her, I would have let Jake stay. I reminded her that part of caring for someone includes respecting each other's limits and personal space. She left in tears, and we haven't really spoken since, except for some terse messages where she says I'm selfish and unlikable. Now, my parents have gotten involved. They are upset with me for refusing to help Jake, saying that family should help each other in times of need. I tried to explain that this isn't about not helping family, but about not letting someone move into my home under false pretenses and without my consent. My parents argue that I could have compromised and let him stay for a night or two. I told them that compromising my boundaries isn't the same as helping, and it would have led to a situation I would deeply regret. Some friends have weighed in as well, with mixed opinions. Some say I was right to enforce my boundaries, especially since Jake was manipulating the situation, and my sister was being deceptive. Others think I should have been more flexible, even if it was inconvenient. I keep replaying the events in my mind, wondering if I overreacted or if I could have handled it differently. The thing is, this has put me in a very uncomfortable position with Lily. I love her, and I want to maintain a good relationship, but I also cannot accept her or anyone else making unilateral decisions that directly impact my home and sense of safety. I'm worried that insisting on my boundaries has permanently damaged our relationship, but I also feel that giving in would have caused more long-term resentment on my part. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with me after she asked, and then showing firm boundaries when he tried to stay anyway. I want to support my sister, but I also want to protect my own mental health and living space. Has anyone dealt with a situation where a sibling expected you to accommodate someone new in their life so quickly? How do you navigate helping family without sacrificing your own boundaries? I am open to advice and perspective because right now, I feel like I'm stuck between doing the right thing for my sister and doing the right thing for myself. AITA for refusing to let my brother move back in after he financially ruined himself. I, 28F, have a younger brother, Tom, 25M, and for most of our lives, we've been really close. Our parents passed away when we were teenagers, so it's always been just the two of us. I ended up in a stable job in finance, living in a medium-sized city, and built a comfortable life for myself. Tom, on the other hand, has always been impulsive and carefree, chasing whatever opportunity or hobby struck his fancy without much thought to the consequences. About 2 years ago, Tom came to me in a panic. He had started a cryptocurrency investment scheme that he'd been telling everyone about, and it collapsed almost overnight. He lost nearly everything, including money he had borrowed from friends and some relatives. To say he was devastated would be an understatement. He called me crying and said he had nowhere to go because his apartment lease was ending and he had drained his savings. My first instinct was to help him. He's my brother, after all, but I also had a sinking feeling that letting him move and might create tension. After a lot of back and forth, I agreed to let him stay temporarily, with the understanding that he would contribute to the household expenses and actively look for a job. I made it clear that this was not a long-term solution. At first, he seemed motivated. He sent out resumes, went to interviews, and paid me a small portion of his unemployment check for rent and groceries. Things seemed manageable. However, about 3 months in, I started noticing patterns that concerned me. He would sleep until noon, then spend the rest of the day scrolling social media or playing video games. He stopped looking for work after 2 months, claiming the job market was impossible. He would borrow money from me for things like concert tickets, food delivery, or emergency purchases, promising to pay me back, but never following through. I tried to talk to him calmly about boundaries and expectations, but every conversation ended with guilt tripping. He would remind me that I had let him stay when no one else would and suggest that I owed him for saving his life. The breaking point came last month. I had planned a small birthday gathering at my apartment with a few close friends. Tom insisted on inviting some of his friends without asking me first. When I said it was a small, intimate thing, he threw a huge fit, calling me selfish and accusing me of not supporting him. That night, I realized that having him live with me had turned into a situation where my own life was constantly disrupted, and I was always walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. After thinking about it for weeks, I finally told Tom that he needed to move out. I offered to help him find an apartment and even give him some money for the deposit, but I was firm that he couldn't stay with me any longer. He reacted extremely badly. He accused me of being heartless and abandoning him, claiming I was the only family who mattered and that no one else would help him. He even threatened to tell mutual friends and colleagues that I had kicked him out, implying I was cruel for refusing family support. Some of my friends have told me that I'm making the right choice because it's unreasonable for him to take advantage of my kindness and disrupt my life. Others have said that families should always support each other, no matter what, and that I'm being cold. My parents raised us to be independent and responsible, and I feel like I'm trying to instill that in him by making him face the consequences of his actions. I've been feeling a lot of guilt because I know he's in a vulnerable spot, but at the same time, I cannot let him continue to treat my home like a free-for-all hotel. The whole situation has caused tension not just between us, but also with my friends, who feel awkward because he acts entitled and unpredictable. I even had to cancel a work-from-home day recently because he brought over a friend a game and they played loud music all day. Recently, he accused me of being the worst sister ever and said I should be ashamed for putting him out. I haven't spoken to him in a week because I can't handle the constant drama. I've tried to remain calm and logical, but every interaction seems to escalate. I want to do the right thing, but I also feel that setting boundaries is necessary. My brother is 25, an adult, and needs to learn how to take care of himself. I fear that by letting him stay, I'm enabling him rather than helping him grow. On the other hand, I worry that by not letting him stay, I'm abandoning him in a moment of crisis. I don't want to be cruel, but I also don't want to sacrifice my mental health and stability. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my brother live with me after he financially ruined himself and consistently refused to take responsibility for his actions. AITA for ruining my cousin's wedding over a seating chart disagreement. I, 29F, come from a large, tight-knit family, and my cousin Sophie, 27F, has always been the golden child. She's the type of person everyone loves, charming, outgoing, and seemingly perfect. Growing up, I was always a bit in her shadow, but we were close enough that I thought we had a healthy relationship. That all changed in the months leading up to her wedding. Sophie got engaged to Alex, 28M, about a year ago, and from the moment the engagement was announced, her wedding plans became a huge deal in the family. Invitations, Planning meetings and endless discussions about seating charts and table arrangements took over everyone's lives. Sophie is very particular about her wedding vision, and she wanted everything to be perfect. I was excited to be part of it, but I quickly realized I was stepping into a minefield of expectations. I was given the role of guest coordinator by my aunt, who handles most of the wedding logistics. My main responsibility was helping with seating charts, making sure families were comfortable, and assisting with any last-minute guest issues. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, I underestimated how intense Sophie could be. As the wedding approached, Sophie started micromanaging everything. She had very specific ideas about which relatives could sit together. Some of her requests made sense, but some were completely unrealistic. For example, she wanted her mother's side of the family completely isolated from her father's side, even though they had always gotten along at family events. She also refused to allow certain cousins and friends to be seated near people she didn't particularly like, even if they were close friends or longtime partners. I tried to accommodate her wishes as best as I could, but the more I worked on the seating chart, the more unreasonable she became. One of the major sticking points was my relationship with my boyfriend, Jake, 30M. Sophie has always subtly disliked him, mostly because he's not from a wealthy or prestigious background, and she's very conscious about appearances. She wanted Jake seated at a table far away from our immediate family, which made no sense to me. We were part of the same family group and would naturally want to sit together. I tried to reason with her, explaining that guests would feel awkward being separated from their significant others, but she refused to listen, insisting it was her wedding and her rules. The tension came to a head a week before the wedding. I had finalized a draft of the seating chart that tried to respect Sophie's requests while also considering the comfort of our family and friends. I sent it to her for approval, expecting at least a discussion. Instead, she completely flipped out. She accused me of deliberately undermining her and ruining the entire vibe of the wedding. She said I was being selfish and disrespectful. I tried to calmly explain that I was trying to make everyone comfortable and that some of her seating rules were impractical, but she wouldn't listen. Feeling cornered and frustrated, I made the decision to adjust the seating chart without her approval. I moved Jake to sit with our family, combined a few smaller tables to avoid isolating people, and made minor changes to prevent awkward placements of certain relatives who had long histories together. I knew this could upset Sophie, but I genuinely felt that the original arrangement was going to create tension during the reception. The night of the wedding was a disaster from the start. Sophie immediately noticed the changes and confronted me in front of the wedding planner and some family members. She started yelling, calling me manipulative, selfish, and even questioning my loyalty to her. The confrontation drew attention, and soon the room was filled with awkward tension. I tried to explain my reasoning, but she refused to listen and stormed out of the reception hall, leaving her fiancé bewildered and upset. After that, things spiraled. Some family members took Sophie's side, saying I had no right to make changes without her permission, while others quietly admitted that they thought the seating chart was going to cause problems. Guests were uncomfortable, and the atmosphere was tense for the rest of the night. Jake and I stuck with our family, but it was impossible to enjoy ourselves because of the ongoing drama. Since the wedding, my relationship with Sophie has been completely destroyed. She refuses to speak to me, and even other family members who sided with her are keeping their distance. Some have suggested that I ruined her big day, and that I should have put her happiness above everyone else's comfort. I feel torn because, on one hand, I really believe I was trying to prevent conflicts and make sure people could enjoy themselves. But on the other hand, I can't deny that I went against the bride's explicit wishes. I'm struggling with guilt and anger. I honestly didn't intend to sabotage Sophie's wedding, and I thought I was making a practical decision that would help everyone, including her, enjoy the celebration. But the backlash has been intense, and I don't know if I was wrong. AITA for taking control of the seating chart and changing it without the bride's approval, knowing it could upset her, but believing it was for the greater good? Or should I have blindly followed Sophie's rules, even if they created awkward and uncomfortable situations for guests? I've considered apologizing again, but I feel like Sophie's reaction was extreme, and I don't want to be blamed for ruining a wedding where no one was actually hurt, just slightly uncomfortable. Yet, part of me wonders if I crossed a line by prioritizing logic over the bride's wishes. I know weddings are supposed to be about the couple, but I also feel that creating unnecessary tension for guests isn't fair. The fallout has been intense, and I'm stuck wondering if I made a huge mistake or if Sophie's reaction was completely over the top. Has anyone else experienced this kind of wedding drama? I need an honest perspective on whether I was truly the asshole here, or if Sophie's expectations were just unrealistic and unreasonable. AITA for refusing to let my mother stay at my house after she criticized my parenting in front of my in-laws. I, 32F, have a 7-year-old son, Liam, and I've been married to my husband, Jason, 34M, for 8 years. Recently, we decided to renovate our house, and during this process, we've been living in a temporary rental. My mother, 58F, who lives in another state, offered to come stay with us for a couple of weeks to help out during the renovation and to spend time with Liam. I was hesitant because my mother has a tendency to overstep boundaries and offer unsolicited parenting advice. But Jason thought it could be a good opportunity for Liam to bond with his grandmother and for her to help around the house. When my mother arrived, things were okay at first. She helped with some chores, took Liam to the park, and cooked meals. However, within the first 3 days, she started giving me constant advice on how to parent Liam. She would criticize my decisions openly, often in front of Liam. For instance, one morning, I asked Liam to clean up his toys before breakfast. My mother immediately said, "You really shouldn't make him do that first thing. Kids respond better when you let them have some fun before chores." I tried to brush it off, but it quickly became a pattern. The situation escalated when we had a small gathering for Jason's family. My mother decided to comment on my parenting while everyone was there. Liam was sitting at the table, and she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I don't know why you make her do everything on her own. Kids need guidance, not constant nagging. I used to raise kids differently, and they turn out fine." Jason and I exchanged uncomfortable glances, and I felt humiliated. Our relatives were polite, but visibly awkward. I tried to redirect the conversation, but she kept repeating variations of the same criticisms throughout the night. The next day, I confronted my mother privately. I told her that her comments were inappropriate and that I felt undermined as a parent. She replied that she was just trying to help and that I was too sensitive and overreacting. She also added that Liam was probably picking up on my mistakes and will grow up confused. I was furious, but I stayed calm and told her that she needed to respect my household rules and my role as Liam's mother. She said she would try, but nothing changed. Over the following days, her behavior became worse. She started making critical remarks about how I feed Liam, how I dress him, and even how I discipline him. She openly compared me to other parents she knew and suggested that I was too strict or too lenient, depending on the situation. Jason tried to mediate, telling her that her comments were making me uncomfortable and that she needed to stop. She brushed him off too, insisting that she had more experience and he wouldn't mind. I felt completely disrespected and anxious in my own home. Finally, after 2 weeks of living under constant scrutiny, I told my mother that she could not stay in the house anymore. I said she was welcome to visit, but she could not live with us until she could respect our parenting choices and boundaries. She exploded, yelling that I was ungrateful and that I was rejecting my own mother for no reason. She called Jason weak for not supporting her and told Liam that Mom doesn't want you to have your grandma around because she's too controlling. Liam looked confused and upset, and I felt horrible for how this had affected him. Jason backed me up, saying that we needed to maintain a healthy environment for Liam and that my mother's behavior was unacceptable. She left a day later, but continues to call daily, insisting that I ruined our relationship and that I'm punishing her for being involved in Liam's life. She also claims that our relatives think I overreacted, which is not true, but I'm not sure how to address that. My friends and a few relatives have said I did the right thing, but my mother keeps sending long messages about how I'm unreasonable and selfish. She says she just wanted to help and that now Liam will miss out on a good influence in his life because of my rigid parenting. I feel torn because I love my mother, but I also feel that she needs to respect my role as a parent in my home. AITA for refusing to let my mother stay at my house after she repeatedly criticized my parenting in front of family and disregarded my boundaries. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.